Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, how an entire town backed up over 1.5 terabytes of data to the cloud with CloudBerry Backup on AWS. In your control panel, you will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. If for any reason we could not get to your question, we plan on responding to each question personally through email. The deck will be available through SlideShare along with a recording of the webinar 2 to 3 days after the conclusion of this presentation. So keep an eye out for that email. My name is Mike Calbert, and I'm a Solutions Architect with AWS, and I'll be one of your speakers today and the moderator for today's webinar. Hi, everyone. So I'll start by talking again. I'm Mike Calbert, Solutions Architect with AWS. Customers will face challenges when developing a backup and recovery strategy, the first being automation or lack thereof. Initially, some customers will start with a manual process as a stopgap. With a manual process, a customer can inadvertently miss a backup window or miss an entire set of data that needs to be backed up. Between having to purchase a support contract, set a patch schedule, additional staff training, and dealing with unexpected hardware issues, the hardware backup option is both difficult and expensive to maintain. Data also grows rapidly, which means the storage needed to back up the data needs to be ready to accommodate that growth immediately. Hardware is also difficult to scale quickly unless you've already purchased substantial capacity for that future growth. Compliance is another common challenge customers will face. Do I purchase additional and/or cheaper hardware for long-term storage? How do I move that data to my archival tier? How can I prove that the data hasn't been modified since it was originally archived? This is where AWS comes in to help alleviate these challenges. With Lifecycle Policies, configuration as code, cross-region replication, and versioning, these are all integrated from the start with AWS services. Security is also built into these services. With the click of a button, you can enable server-side encryption for objects sent to a bucket in S3. S3 is also integrated with our key management system. You can leverage keys in KMS or bring your own keys for an additional layer of encryption. S3 bucket policies allow a customer to granularly lock down the access to said bucket. S3 access logs also allow you to audit who and how your data is being accessed. There's also another option of sending data to S3 from within your VPC. You can do this over a VPC endpoint. This creates a private connection between your VPC and S3 without having to traverse the internet. With configuration as a code and not needing to work with hardware, an AWS implementation is easier to maintain as well. With Lifecycle Policies, a customer can easily implement a tiered storage model with hot, warm, and cold access patterns. The storage also scales up and down as needed. We scale with you as there is nearly infinite storage capacity with S3. S3 holds trillions of objects and regularly peaks to millions of requests per second. If you're backing up to EBS volumes can also be resized on the fly as needed. By leveraging AWS, you're also only going to pay for what you use. As of March, there have been 59 price reductions for S3. The ability to create a lifecycle policy also allows you to have tiered storage, as previously mentioned, to help further reduce costs. In Oregon, for example, standard S3 pricing is at 0.023 cents per gigabyte. If your access pattern allows you to move, you can move less frequently accessed data to S3 infrequent access, which is approximately half the price per gigabyte of standard S3 storage. You can take it additionally further and move to Glacier to get your cost down to approximately 0.004 cents per gigabyte, which will save you substantial amounts of money if your access patterns allow. Next, I'll let Ian talk about the benefits of our APN partners.
Thanks, Mike. Let's talk about some of the benefits of APN partners like Cloudberry. First is easy configuration. It's easy to spin up and deploy software through the AWS Marketplace or other deployment mechanisms like partner-managed AWS CloudFormation templates or Amazon Machine Images. This allows customers to quickly get up and running. They also support incremental backup, so customers can save on storage costs by only backing up the data that's changed. And so this way, you don't pay storage costs on duplicate data, saving you money. Also, having your data stored in more than one place is a smart idea and a strong recommendation. APN partners like Cloudberry can support asynchronous replication. This means you can leverage S3 cross-region replication to know that your data is reliably stored in multiple geographical locations. They also provide the benefit of rapid recovery. Because they leverage AWS services behind the scenes, customers benefit from fast retrieval times and can restore data to Amazon Elastic Block Store volumes, create Amazon machine images, or restore data back on-premise quickly. If the restore location is in AWS, the restore time can be even faster due to not having to leave the AWS cloud, saving both time and money. They're also cost-effective. Because it's launched to the marketplace or another third-party solution, you no longer have to negotiate outside of AWS, obtain purchase orders, etc. It's all bundled with your AWS bill, and you only pay for what you use. Cloudberry also allows you to expire old backups that are no longer needed, further saving you money. Lastly, they support policy-based backups. This allows you to define granular level backup policies for what files to backup or ignore. It also lets you define backup schemes, such as incremental and differential backups. The Agile process for performing backups in AWS includes these items. First, they like to take point-in-time copies of your data on primary storage and store on Amazon S3 or Glacier. It's important to store your data off-site to reduce the impact of events such as natural disasters or theft. By storing your data in AWS, you are now satisfying this off-site requirement, and you even have the option to replicate data across regions for additional redundancy. You can also enable versioning through S3 or through partner solutions. This allows you to have multiple copies of data to select from its restore points. There are several use cases for implementing a good data backup solution. The first is to prevent data loss. This can be either due to hardware or software. Ensuring you have copies of your data in the event of your infrastructure failing can reduce the impact, especially to your customers. It can also provide audit proof for historical records. Some industries or compliance programs require keeping historical data for extended periods of time. And lastly, protection from data corruption, accidental deletion, or overwriting. Important files can be mitigated through the implementation of a data backup and recovery solution. Let's take a look at the various AWS services that play a role in backup and recovery. First is Amazon S3. S3 is the storage for the internet. It's our simple storage service that offers software developers a highly scalable, reliable, and low latency data storage infrastructure at very low cost. Like Mike mentioned earlier, S3 standard access in US East 1 costs only 2.3 cents per gigabyte, and for infrequently accessed, it only costs 1.25 cents per gigabyte in US East 1. S3 provides nearly limitless storage with a maximum object size of 5 terabytes. S3 currently holds trillions of objects and regularly peaks at millions of requests per second. S3 also allows for the implementation of lifecycle policies to move to Amazon Glacier, which we'll talk about next. Amazon Glacier is a secure, durable, and extremely low-cost cloud storage service for data archiving and long-term backup. Customers can reliably store large or small amounts of data for as little as 0.4 of a cent per gigabyte per month. Amazon Glacier provides 3 options for access to archives from a few minutes to several hours. Common use cases for Glacier include media asset archiving, healthcare information archiving, regulatory and compliance archiving, magnetic tape replacement, and many others. Glacier also has a feature called Vault Lock, which allows you to easily deploy and enforce compliance controls on individual Glacier vaults via a lockable policy. Once locked, the Vault Lock policy becomes immutable, and Glacier will enforce the prescribed controls to help achieve your compliance objectives. Common examples of this include a write once, read many, or worm policy, or time-based records retention for regulatory archives. And next we have Storage Gateway. The AWS Storage Gateway service seamlessly enables hybrid cloud storage between on-premise environments and the AWS cloud. It combines a multi-protocol storage appliance with highly efficient network connectivity to deliver local performance with virtually unlimited scale. The Storage Gateway service can be connected in 3 different ways. It can be connected as a file server using the File Gateway, or a local disk in the form of an iSCSI mount using the Volume Gateway, or a virtual tape library using the Tape Gateway. Optimizations such as multi-part management, delta transfers, bandwidth throttling, and bandwidth scheduling are standard for all 3 types. Next, Eugene from Cloudberry will describe their product and cover some of the advantages of using their product.
Hi everyone, my name is Eugene Rudinsky. I'm a solution architect here at Cloudberry, and I'm really excited to guide you through the key capabilities of our solution from the backup and disaster recovery perspective. So that's my goal for today's section. Yeah, since 2011 with over 300,000 customers and 5,000 service providers. We help to work with AWS storage services around the globe. We recently crossed 100 petabyte threshold of cumulative data transferred to our partners into Simple Storage and Glacier. As one of the AWS Partner Network member, we hold leading position in the backup and file management competency for the storage services. Cloudberry Lab profile contains tools applicable for a wide range of consumer types, including tools for personal usage, corporate tools with all its requirements, as well as our unique service for arranging backup as a service, as well as disaster recovery as a service solution. Cloudberry tools are very easy to use and affordable. For example, it is hard to replace either Cloudberry Drive or Cloudberry Explorer when you simply need to manage files between local computer and remote cloud storage. Those two have become essentials for large number of IT professionals, either for beginners, recently started utilizing AWS Cloud, or experienced cloud engineers with several years in the industry. Managed backup, or we shortly call it MBS, is a very unique solution in its type, and it helps IT departments as well as service providers who deliver backup and disaster recovery services for end users. Over 1,000 partners of our managed backup on a daily basis help their end users and employees to solve backup and disaster recovery challenges. The product is super simple and very powerful at the same time, what is really hard to achieve being backup platform today. Remote management along with remote deployment and configuration, monitoring as well as flexible reporting system, complete white labeling with ability to rebrand agents as well as web system for online end users access for self-restore services. Very powerful RESTful API and command line interface integrations with integrates with third parties and features, making just a very short list of its capabilities. Remote access and remote assistance, which was introduced recently, remote management and reporting, as well as other features are done through a single secure standard port 443, which makes very simple administration workflow. So there is no need to configure firewall facilities for the local networks or endpoints, what significantly simplifies administration workflow. For the last 7 years, managed backup has gone through a large number of enhancements and transformations due to IT requirements changes and our partners' feedback. And we haven't finished yet with all these innovations. I would say we just started, so there are a million things ahead. Again, as AWS technology partner, Cloudberry Managed Backup solution follows all the best practices and recommendations for guaranteeing data security. Storage as well as other services management from the MBS perspective no longer requires access and secret key pair. IAM role or Identity Access Manager role usage mitigates key compromising risks, providing an additional layer of security. IAM role enables access to all required AWS services for providers without storing access and secret key in Cloudberry Managed Backup backend. It is 2 steps to set up, starting with combining role policy. So we actually provide a template and all the details, and I believe that's going to be simplified shortly within the next few weeks. Finishing by pasting Amazon resource name, which is called ARN, into the wizards field, as you can see on the screen. Again, AWS services configuration for managed backup service, as well as for other third-party platforms, from now should be done through the Identity Access Manager role, what actually follows the Amazon recommendations. So this is what we've done. So now we're getting closer to the main topic of today. Cloudberry Backup is, I would say, irreplaceable tool for backup and recovery tasks. With advanced encryption 256 standard, Cloudberry guarantees delivery of consumers' data till the last bit into the cloud without exceptions. Various methods of data backup help customers to protect their data in the most right way. Single object or entire bucket class management guarantees cost-effective storage utilization. Image-based backup helps with entire computer protection with further restore either on single file level layer from the volumes or as entire computer as dissimilar hardware or AWS EC2, which is part of the compute services, or Amazon Machine Image for templating or EBS volumes for further attaching and usage with EC2 instances or with something else. Where the restore as EC2 compute instance helps with the disaster recovery and migration projects rolling out physical computer as EC2 or other relevant services. We do provide SQL and Exchange agent help, support. So those two agents help to deal with databases and mail servers. So those two things provide backup and recovery challenges with ability to restore even, single item from the backup. Let's say single database or single table. Or if we talk about mail server, we talk about item level restore and single mailbox. One of the major pieces of puzzle, before kicking the data off to the cloud is Cloudberry dedupe or deduplication, inline deduplication. What is actually simple middleware that helps customers collect all the backups across the infrastructure with further sending only unique blocks or data to S3, which is again the way to optimize costs with storage services. These guarantee significant reduction of storage usage along with compression and block level incremental methods that we have on board. Backups are encrypted at rest and in transit. Ian earlier mentioned SSE, server-side encryption. We also provide additional layer of encryption for single files or images, pure sending them to the cloud. What means actually there is no need to wrap around this setup third-party application or service like VPN or tunneling or something like that. Backup administrators get full control of the entire workflow, starting from the data source up to the destination with single pane of glass and ability to get quick update on everything with bird's eye view dashboard. So we provide a dashboard. Things like compression, data deduplication, block level backup helps customers to reduce storage costs and deliver only what is needed. Agents available for Windows, Linux, and Mac operating system with transparent and very selectable license model. What actually makes those licenses and the price for the product very affordable by designing exactly what required from the backup and disaster recovery perspective. For example, for image-based backup, server license is applicable where for protecting only files of desktop computer, the desktop license or server type of license is more than enough, which is obviously cheaper. In managed backup, everything is designed for providers and end users. Self-restore service or self-restore service simplifies and automates routine operations by making it over web access, what I mentioned earlier. Centralized management helps quickly realize the whole situation across all computers and storage endpoints, as well as drill down into each fact individually, for example, for troubleshooting or billing accounts, counting stats, or many other tasks. Cloudberry has native application for QNAP and Synology, what makes backup and restore for AWS services of NAS boxes easy. My colleague Adam will talk actually about that from the backup perspective, and he will share his experience with us in a few minutes. Image-based backup with ability to restore directly from the cloud to the similar hardware became one of the first key capabilities from the entire computer restore for us. By keeping development of this idea, we eventually provided the ability to restore images of the entire computer as Amazon Compute Service like EC2, what actually can be really helpful during physical to cloud migration as well as disaster recovery challenges. We also can instantiate Amazon Machine Image or AMI for templating or we can create elastic block storage, which is EBS volume, for attaching volumes to any computer instances through them. Last but not really least, Cloudberry can help with Microsoft SQL workflows, as I mentioned earlier. By protecting databases and through the restore of single table or entire database or even entire instance. And Exchange mailboxes as well, so there is a separate agent helps to protect the Exchange mail server, and there is great capability for item level restore directly from the cloud with the ability to get single item of Exchange. So this feature is available today, and with that being said, I'd love to hand over to Adam, who is the hero of our today's webinar and who is going to share his story about IT challenges at Edgartown, where Amazon and Cloudberry have very much.
Thank you, Eugene. So my name's Adam Derrick. I'm the IT manager for the town of Edgartown in Massachusetts. So Edgartown is on an island called Martha's Vineyard off the coast of Massachusetts, founded in 1642. An old whaling industry we were a major port for. But the island is perhaps best known for a movie that came out in 1975 called Jaws that probably many of you have seen. We're a real seasonal area. Our town has a year-round population of about 3,500 people, summer population of 12,000. The island itself goes from 20,000 year-round residents to over 100,000. Edgartown's a small, well-run, fiscally responsible town. I started working for the town 10 years ago, and we didn't have an IT department. So I had to define what our needs were, create an infrastructure, do everything within a budget, and continually try to keep up with current trends. We currently are backing up 1.5 terabytes of data, which is town records, documents, database applications, and that number is ever increasing. When I started, we had tape backups, and nobody knew how to recover from a tape backup, and I had a lot of sleepless nights just worrying about the what-if scenario. I knew I had to do something, and over the years, I've tried different backup programs, and again, continually looked at what the trends were. Originally, we had just the tape backups, which were on-site, and I've switched over now to on-site and cloud backups, obviously, using Cloudberry and Amazon. What I use instead of file servers are Synology NAS devices, and for years, I was looking for a native product that would back up the NAS itself and run on the NAS. I had another product that ran on my computer that would look at the NAS and back it up, but then if for some reason my computer was off, our backups weren't happening. I currently replicate from one NAS to another within town, but desperately needed a way to back those up to the cloud because we are a seaside community. We get hit with hurricanes, nor'easters, electrical issues on the island are common, and one of the original servers that I had a grade 5 configuration, fault tolerant except for what happened to me, which was all the drives in that server fried during a storm. Went right through all the surge protection, UPC, UPS, and I lost the server. But that was a blessing in disguise because then I was able to switch over instead of running file servers, instead using a NAS, and it's worked out very well for us. We have a tight budget in town. Municipal budgets are very well run in this town, and all you have to do is look in the newspaper and you see where there are examples of municipal budgets that have not been run and managed quite as well. The challenge with me is that we have level funding, so my budget can't really go up, but yet my tech needs always increase. So I'm constantly trying to figure out how to do more with less or the same and try to stretch the budget. One of the things that people commonly say to me is that I need an assistant. I run around, I'm spread too thin. But what I do is, instead of looking to hire an assistant, is I try to find the best possible vendors that I can find. Because if you find the right vendor, then you have an expert doing a task that you really need. For backup storage, who better than Amazon? I mean, I don't have to deal with storage servers or anything. I mean, they've got it obviously very professionally done. They have more options than I can name, and they had options that were very well suited to what I needed, and the pricing was terrific. Cloudberry offered a great backup program for me to get my data from my devices to the Amazon Web Services. So what I started out doing is I started out asking Cloudberry a million questions. They got back to me very rapidly, and even with screenshots on how to perform certain tasks. So I was very impressed with them as a vendor from the get-go. So why AWS? Well, as a one-person department, I can't manage a whole lot of hardware myself. Amazon has a global infrastructure that ensures that our data is accessible and can be recovered in case of a disaster. When it comes to a backup, if it's not highly available, it's not a worthwhile solution. Amazon has these multiple backup options, and I looked at the different options and found one that was really perfect and ideal for what I needed. I'm using something that gives me the storage that I need, and I don't need to access that data very often. So with my infrequent access to the data, I found something that was priced really perfect for what my need was. Cost effective, I mean, the cost of the storage is terrific. It really does allow me to do more and back up more with less resources based on the pricing. It's really been a great tool for me. And like they had mentioned as well, it's scalable. One of the projects that I'm looking to do within the next year or two is to scan in all the old records that we have in Town Hall. And to give you a feel for how big a project that is, I'm going to have a scanning company come in, and it's probably going to take them a few months to get everything scanned in. So my storage needs are going to expand exponentially, but I don't even have to worry about that because I know with the scalable storage that Amazon has, I'm all set. So why Cloudberry? Well, as I mentioned, I started out asking them a million questions, and I could tell their support was top-notch. That in itself is something that I require of all of my vendors. Being able to install their software directly on a NAS meant the world to me as well, because I did have instances where like I had mentioned, my computer would be off, and the NAS wouldn't get backed up because the backup client wasn't running directly on that. I had been using a competitor's product that offered this as well, but the interface was clunky and the support wasn't there. Cloudberry's software is very smooth, it's very easy to use, and the support is great. They also have, as Eugene mentioned, a centralized management console, which is really a great tool outside of backups for me. This lists all of my devices, including the NAS units, and every backup plan that I have on each device. So you can have multiple backup plans on a single device. And in this management console, you see each plan and how it's performing. It tells you the last result of the backup. It tells you status. So if it's okay, which is it's running great. If it's overdue, so maybe a computer's been off, someone's been on vacation, and so the backup hasn't been performed in a certain period of time, or if the backup's failed, and you can get information about why. The other nice thing about that tool is that the management console, is that it does have an alarm status for devices, which lets you know if the disk usage is high. CPU, memory, there are alarms for all of these different things, and so for me as a one-person department managing things in 7 or 8 buildings, I get a pretty good pulse on what's going on with all my devices just from one dashboard. And Eugene had mentioned the image-based backups and the potential to restore. Eugene, I don't know if you want to jump in here and just reiterate that point or speak any more to that point.
Absolutely, Adam. Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. So, having image-based backup in place and stored it either in S3 or, locally, we always have opportunity to restore from the backup, and that restore can go either to, dissimilar hardware, as I mentioned earlier, or if we talk about AWS compute things, we can restore image-based backup as EC2 instance. So this is really great and applicable in case if you want to check whether our computer can be migrated to the cloud. So I would say it's kind of physical to cloud migration or P2C migration, as well as we can set up something which is called disaster recovery. So essentially we can consider those backups as potential future EC2 instances in case of disaster. So there are also other 2 things I mentioned earlier. We can do Amazon Machine Image Restore. This actually helps to template our Amazon configuration. Essentially, we can create a template for future virtual machines that we're going to create in Amazon, as well as EBS or elastic block storage that can be attached to any EC2 instance, and we can use the content from the inside out. And I'm back to you.
Okay, thank you, Eugene. The last item on this slide, cutting costs. Between the licenses and the cloud licenses from Cloudberry and the storage costs from Amazon, I'm saving quite a bit of money, and I've got my data, it's, like it says, long-lived, infrequently accessed, and so for that I'm using the standard infrequent access storage from Amazon. So the benefits that I've found from using Cloudberry partnered with Amazon is I'm getting these successfully backed up devices of all of my on-premise storage. It would be a huge task for me to do any other way than using their software. And in the 10 years that I've been in my position, I have tried many different other options. And while some have been good, they haven't been the perfect match. But between Cloudberry and Amazon, I think I have finally found that perfect match, which is great. Between the software, the hardware that Amazon has, their services, and the support that I've received. My costs have been cut by approximately $800 per year. I'm looking at current projects and what my storage will be now and in the future. I estimate that in the next year I'll be saving $1,000 to $1,200, which is going to save about 50% of what I was spending on my backups. And it is nice to have a single product for all my devices, for all of my computers, servers, NAS devices. I'm just using one interface, one program, Cloudberry's backup program, to be able to do this. So there's no real learning curve if I haven't had to go into a device for a certain period of time and figure out, okay, well, this is the software, and how is this different? What do I have to do on this one? It's just the same across the board. And that, simple is great, and I have found it to be quite simple.
Thanks, Adam. We're now going to transition into our live Q&A. So we've received quite a few questions pertaining to the Cloudberry product. Eugene or the Cloudberry team, are there any you'd like to call out specifically and answer?
Yeah, one of the questions I personally would like to highlight and maybe answer publicly. So I will just reread that question. So how long does it take to push 1.5 terabyte of data, and how frequently is a full backup sent? So for 1.5 terabyte data, you know, one of the AWS service, which hasn't been mentioned here in this webinar, is called AWS Snowball. So Snowball is actually a you know, let's call it a network device that AWS ships to your company. Obviously, you need to request Snowball through the console. And once received, you can attach it directly to your computer, offload data, and send it back to AWS data center. So Cloudberry fully supports that configuration. Through Cloudberry, you can do offloading data. Essentially, it's called data seeding. And yeah, Snowball is really a great tool for delivering such amount of data like 1.5 terabyte. I believe there is a table somewhere on AWS webpage which is giving some examples when you should start thinking about Snowball, when you should start to think about other things, and how you can offload that data. But essentially, Snowball is one of the service that we suggest and we see customers requesting quite frequently from AWS for offloading data using our tool. And in terms of the second part of the question, how frequently is a full backup sent? So this actually depends on the configuration and the type of the backup that you configured. There is no real full for file level backup. We don't really re-backup data from scratch when we talk about file level backup. So you just get one full copy of your file, which is done initially on the first run, and then every sequential runs we just deliver its changes. However, for image backup or for image-based backup, we do have full level backup because it's a kind of guarantee, because we run the full backup first, and then on every next run we just offload incrementals. And according to best practice, the full backup should happen at least on a weekly basis or monthly basis, and we can set up that within plan. And moreover, we recently started to utilize internal things from Amazon perspective. So we do support internal code, which actually makes our product to support something which is called synthetic full. So essentially, it's the way to instantiate another full after, for example, 1 week of retentions, 1 week of block level incremental changes since the first run. So we can create another full after 1 week by reusing existing blocks in the storage. That was the question I wanted to answer. Thank you.
All right, this is Ian here. We have a couple of other questions pertaining to S3 and some of the other AWS services. So one of them was, how reliable is S3? And S3 offers 11 nines of durability, and S3 standard is designed for 99.99% availability, and standard infinitely access is designed for 99.9% of availability. Let's see. We've also got a question here regarding how fast can I get data out of Glacier? Currently, we offer 3 options for retrieving data with varying access times and cost. The 3 options are expedited, standard, and bulk retrievals. So expedited retrievals let you quickly access your data for those occasional urgent requests or a subset of archives, and these are typically on the order of 1 to 5 minutes. And then standard retrievals typically complete within 3 to 5 hours. And then we also offer bulk retrievals, which are the lowest cost retrieval option for, kind of as the name implies, for retrieving large amounts of data, even petabytes of data inexpensively in a single day. And these typically complete within 5 to 12 hours. If you look at the Glacier FAQ page, we also provide more detailed explanations and examples.
Adam, I think there was a question for you if you wanted to answer the question about how much data you were backing up with CloudBerry.
Yes, so I am backing up 1.5 terabytes. It didn't start out that way. What I did is I started out, I put the software on my NAS, and that backed up about 700 gigabytes. That increased as I added other NASs on there, and then I also put the software on computers. So I've gotten up to the 1.5 terabytes at this point, but I didn't start out that way.
Okay, thank you. Another question says, does version retention impact AWS storage size and monthly costs? Yeah, so basically normal Amazon S3 rates apply for every version of an object stored in your bucket. So you will be charged for those items and those versions in your bucket.
We've also got another question asking about how licensing works for CloudBerry. Do you have someone from the CloudBerry side that can dive in there and kind of elaborate on that process?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted. So the license model is quite simple. It is base per agent. So you set up the product on a single computer and you pay for that product. And also there is different options from the functionality perspective. Again, in my slide I mentioned that you may select server edition, which is capable to make entire computer backup and a high step of the license. That's going to cost more, comparing to, for example, desktop edition, which is the niche license type, and it gives you file level capability. But essentially, it's per agent.
Perfect. We've also got another question about what are the data retrieval limitations for S3 and frequently accessed? So S3 and frequently accessed is designed for long-lived but frequently inaccessed data that is retained for months or years. And so in contrast to S3 standard, infrequently accessed is designed to retain the data that you're not frequently accessing, but you just want to store it and for the occasional once-off retrieval. So if you do delete an item within infrequently accessed, under 30 days, you'll be charged for a full 30 days of access. But I'd invite you to kind of take a look at the S3 pricing page, which kind of goes through and provides additional examples and additional clarification, as well as the frequently accessed questions.
Hi, Adam. I guess we had another question about your setup, I guess, with the Town Internet. I guess, could you elaborate on that and, I guess, explain?
Sure, happy to. The question is how much internet bandwidth does a town have and how reliable is it? What I've got at Town Hall is 100 meg down, 20 meg up connection. Our options for internet service on the island are pretty limited. How reliable is it? I don't know if any IT professional wants to claim that things are reliable. I'm knocking on wood as I'm speaking, but it's been pretty good. It's been very reliable. I think that the network on the island and the cabling and the wiring has improved quite a bit. I know there have been a lot of work on them. It didn't used to be good, and when I started, we actually had a DSL connection 10 years ago, and then a T1, and then we've ramped up from there.
Perfect. And kind of adding that, can you elaborate on your topology of the NAS, like how many users, the geographic distribution of users, and how they're interconnected?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I've got 4 in town right now. I've got at Town Hall, I've got 35 users, and then I have a backup unit over that I keep over at our police department in their network room. And so the NAS that I have at Town Hall nightly syncs with the one over at the police department. So I have somewhat of a local backup there. I've got these running at the library where I've got 10 users. I've got one at our water department with 4 users. I've got one at our harbor master's office with 3. And the way Synology's setup is that you can set things up so you can easily remotely access them, and they can also be interconnected to push backups from one unit to another. So that's been a big thing for me, having these push backups. Everything pushes backups over to the unit that I have at our police department, which is it's in a good secure location, but then I also have my cloud backup.
Perfect, thanks. And does your 1.5 terabytes include versioning?
It does. It's been nice also to be able to define the versioning that I wanted, because that I meant to mention that in my presentation, that a backup is good, but having the versioning that you need is even better. Someone is invariably going to do something that you don't want them to do, and then that copy is going to get backed up. So it's always nice to be able to go back a few versions.
Got it. And for Cloudberry, if someone's backing up their data to Cloudberry, how does Cloudberry handle the loss of an internet connection in the middle of the backup process? What procedures do you guys have in place there to deal with those types of situations?
So essentially, there are some configurable retries. Your question meant that one. So if there are network interruptions, the backup agent will retry attempt several times, and again, that is configurable right in the agent. The other thing is, if we talk about large objects like image-based backup, so there is something which is called multi-part upload. So essentially, a large object is being uploaded in chunks in parallel using multiple threads, and all this actually is just embedded mechanism of AWS for handling situation when some of the packets dropped, and there is no need to re-upload the data, so we just start to upload from the package that was lost. So multi-part uploads at least guarantees fast upload and helps to work with large objects. The other case I want to highlight as well is the consistency, like backup consistency. That might be useful, and it's also configurable. It checks on certain basis whether you have all the files uploaded recently, they are not corrupted, they are not touched by someone else, and they're in the cloud. Otherwise, it marks the file by the flag by giving you idea, okay, so that your file is not recoverable. So that might be also relevant to the question. Yeah, so there are some other internal mechanisms that we use for doing that.
I think we had another question on how do we do versioning. So if you want to do versioning, you can enable that on your S3 bucket. And then I don't know if Cloudberry wants to elaborate at all on additional versioning other than S3.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. So there is versioning which is can be enabled on the bucket. That's fine. It depends really. Cloudberry also offers the way to version the certain object using something which is called block level backup. So when we back up first time, we get the full object placed to the bucket for the first time. When we back up the other day and the file has been changed, so we're just gonna take either changed blocks of that file and place it to the bucket as well. So this actually gives our customer 2 points for the restore. There is also a way to disable block level backup if needed. So this actually will be full file offloaded if it's been changed. So that's going to give two files in the cloud. Both represent its state. Like first and then changed file. But again, so that's going to allocate the entire space. Like that's going to be like double space. So it depends really on the case, but block level backup guarantees 2 points by like deliver only changed blocks to the cloud. This is really good when we talk about large files. Again, when we talk about image-based backup, and those images can be backed up on block level by delivering only changed blocks to the cloud. and essentially that's going to give us number of points for the restore. So all these block level points will depend on the first full. And the same situation for a file level backup, but I would say it's really recommended when we talk about large files. So it's really good if we enable block level backup for the large file. For example, PSD files if you back up your mail archives.
I think we have another question for Adam. How often does Edgartown move their full backups to AWS?
Well, mostly I'm doing incremental. I do some image-based backups, which I've just started. I was discussing that with Ian this past week, and he had given me, again, these great step-by-step instructions. So I'm planning on doing some full backups of images once a week, and I'm going to be doing that for a couple of servers.
Looks like we have another question for you, Adam. We're going to keep you in the hot seat. How often do you test restores, files, databases, AD, etc.?
I test them sort of as needed. I mean, I'd like to get into doing it every other week, every month, but I do go in and pull some old versions of files off every now and then. Sometimes because someone has deleted something, and sometimes just because, like I had mentioned before, someone does something that you don't really want them to do, or they corrupt something, and you bring it back. So for me, I would say on a practical basis, I probably actually need to for something once a month, which is a good thing. You never actually want to need your backup, but it's great, obviously, to have. But I'm going to be testing it out, just kind of being more active with it. So I would say probably likely every couple weeks. But I check their monitoring dashboard. I check that pretty much every day.
Awesome.
So there is one more. Sorry about that. There is one more question that I'd like to answer as well. So the question is, on the centralized management console, can you manage Cloudberry Backup that attach to different AWS accounts? So yes, essentially we do not really resell AWS services. We actually offer to use your own account. You just need to configure it accordingly. And in my presentation, one of the slides was addressed to that case. Essentially, it is recommended to use IAM role right now to get your AWS storage services attached to managed backup platform. And yeah, so the answer is yes, you can use different AWS accounts, perhaps your accounts for doing that. And the second part of the question, can one IT guy manage that backups of multiple unrelated customers? I think Adam actually is one of that example in terms of how one IT guy can manage, the entire infrastructure within company using MBS and different type of agents. And I can just confirm, and I can just highlight another things like within MBS platform, you get, simplicity of workflow. Everything is user-friendly, easy to use. You just get into the web interface, start to create the users, start to assign licenses, start to generate product builds by using rebranding platforms, starting to manage them remotely, starting to create billing, starting to see reports, monitor them, configure them remotely over web interface, and so many other things. I would say it's absolutely fine to get one guy handle all this around the backups, and the MBS is just designed for that case.
Awesome. Looks like we have another question. If backing up multiple PCs, does dedupe work across all PCs, or is each one handled separately?
Well, I think that's the question to me. So dedupe is, I would say, dedupe is middleware between your, Cloudberry agents sitting on different computers and the final destination, which is AWS S3 or AWS Glacier. So dedupe actually collects data and makes inline deduplication. by analyzing all incoming blocks from various computers and deciding what should be sent off to the S3 or to Glacier. And again, when we get another portion, let's say next day or after 1 week, dedupe makes inline dedupe again by analyzing what has been uploaded before, and if those blocks are already in S3, it just puts the flag to to that backup by saying, okay, so we've got that block already. There is no need to upload that. But essentially, it's a middleware between storage services and consumer, and agents.
Awesome. Thanks, Eugene. Looks like we've got time for just one more question.
So this one's for the Cloudberry side. Does Cloudberry compression store files smaller in the cloud, or just as it transfers?
Yeah, we have JZip as the mechanism for compressing files. So yeah, so they are compressed before sending off to the cloud, and so the compression ratio depends on the type of the object that we are talking about. So it's really essential if we let's say try to compress MP3 or something that has been compressed before, so we're not going to get a significant difference. So that's going to give us slightly bigger, slightly slower size of the file. But yeah, JZip is something that we use for making the file smaller. Thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. On that note, we're going to wrap up today's webinar. As a reminder, you will receive an email within the next 2 to 3 days with a link to these on SlideShare and a recording of today's webinar. We want to thank you all very much for attending. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.